Good afternoon, everyone, and we are in the Creole season, so bon après-midi tout le monde. Let me recognize Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister of Dominica, Honorable Rayburn Blackmore, the Minister for National Security and Legal Affairs, Honorable Dr. Irvin McIntyre, the Minister for Finance, and Honorable Kasani Laville, the Minister for Health. Also, let me recognize the Cabinet Secretary, Ms. Prevost, other senior government officials, the media, and the listening public. As at 5 p.m. yesterday afternoon, Dominica has been placed under tropical storm warning. This means that tropical storm conditions are expected in the next 24 hours in this case. Tammy has since progressed to become a hurricane, and we'll hear what that means for Dominica in this press briefing. We'll first hear from Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, Prime Minister, and I'll now invite him to address us.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon to everyone. We would have liked to be speaking to you on different matters and not our preparation for storm. But again, this is the reality. These are the realities we're faced with the advent of climate change. You know, back in the days, the hurricane season would have effectively ended at the last day of September. But with the impact of climate change, there has been for over the last several years an extension of that season. One would recall that in 2013, I believe, we were affected by a Christmas trough, Christmas Eve. A significant part of the country in the West Coast, southern West Coast, was affected by an unexpected trough. And so we're taking every approaching storm seriously, and they are monitored very closely by the Met Office and the Office of Disaster Management, and to ensure that we can provide the public with updated information and advice on some of the actions that we need to take. I want to say to you today that based on the 11 a.m. advisory, we have upgraded our situation from a tropical storm warning to a hurricane watch. So Dominica is now under a hurricane watch officially. And therefore we are in a heightened state of preparedness. We've been having a series of meetings all day today to cross-check our plans and our systems, and that will continue to do so as the day goes by. At 12:45 today, we're having a meeting with the hurricane shelters committee so that we can fine-tune the preparation of the hurricane shelters. And of course, we have ministers who will meet with their respective ministries and to ensure that all of the plans from the national standpoint are in place. I've also directed that public officers shall be allowed to go home at 1 p.m. today to engage in their own final preparations at the family level, but also at the community level. We're going to have to take all necessary precautionary measures, and of course, in respect to the public officers, I would like to urge the private sector that we should allow your staff to go home before the 4 p.m. so that they themselves can also engage in some final family preparations. Because it's also absolutely important that at all levels people are prepared and people are taking action. Again, from the government standpoint, from the National Emergency Planning Organization standpoint, we are taking all of the necessary precautionary measures. We have no control over the weather. We have no control over the storm approaching, but there are some things that we can do and we can put in place to minimize the impact. And if we're impacted, to allow us to bounce back much faster than we would ordinarily do if we're not prepared. Let me urge sincerely moving to a shelter is a voluntary exercise in Dominica. Mandatory evacuation doesn't exist in our laws, and we're hoping that in the first quarter of next year we can go to Parliament to pass legislation to allow mandatory evacuation. It is not in our laws now, and therefore it's a voluntary exercise. Our responsibility as a state is to provide communities with shelters and with support staff to manage those shelters. And therefore we're urging those persons who would have made an assessment of their own or with the advice of the various government agencies that you are in a vulnerable area, that you should avail yourself or take advantage of the availability of a shelter, so that you know you're safer and we know you're safer. We have to ensure that we eliminate the possibility of any loss of lives, and therefore it's important for us to take note of that. We know some areas in the country that are prone to flooding, and we know some areas in the country that are prone to landslides, and so let us take note of that. We have been sending people out in the field to knock on doors in some communities, entire day today, morning today, to urge persons to move, to inform them of where the shelters are. And we've been targeting the most vulnerable parts of the country. But at the end of the day, the government can do so much. It is left to us as citizens and residents to play our part, to assist others in being on safer ground, also helping them prepare for the storm. Again, to reiterate, we're now under hurricane watch. We've moved from a tropical storm warning. We both. Okay, so I'm telling we between both. So we're between the tropical storm warning and the hurricane watch. So we are between both. And of course, that decision is taken to ensure that we give everybody an opportunity to appreciate the situation. Now, again, we're all watching the weather updates online, and that's great. And on television, that is great. I do it myself. But I want to advise us that we should also receive the official information from the Met Office and from the ODM. Again, people may say, well, it is moving away from Dominica. It is not too close to Dominica. But anything can happen. I believe it may have been in 1999. Was it Lenny? Lenny would have passed us, and he came back. It passed us, and he came back and did serious destruction on the west coast of Dominica. And so until we have the completely all clear, we cannot let our guard down. And so let us appreciate that. And these storms, as you know better than me, they can change course. They can change course, and if we think it's gonna be going this way, it might just come back and come to us. So let us not read too much into what we see, and rather let's take advice from the Met Office and ODM. So we're straddling between tropical storm warning and a hurricane watch, and with that we have intensified our plans and ensuring that all bases are covered from the national standpoint. Public officers will go home at 1 p.m. to do the final preparations. So again, we have to pray that the storm doesn't affect us, but we also have to prepare for the storm, and so we need to do both, and let us manage our anxieties. I know this is fresh in our minds with impact of a storm. But let us help each other manage our anxieties and our fears. And one of the best ways of managing your anxieties and your fears is by engaging in planning and preparing yourself. And if you're not safe, if you know that you're not safe, because we all will feel that we're not safe, then we need to move so that at least your anxiety would drop by a significant percentage. Again, God bless all of us, and may God bless and protect our country from this storm. And we do pray that it will not affect us or any of the islands in the Caribbean. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister. And as you heard from the Prime Minister, public officers will be allowed to leave work at 1 p.m. this afternoon, and the private sector is encouraged that they allow their employees to leave before the 4 p.m. cutoff time. I will now invite the Senior Met Officer, Mr. Itoma James, who will give us the official position and progress of Hurricane Tammy.
Good afternoon. The National Hurricane Center today at 10 a.m. has decided to upgrade Tropical Storm Tammy to Hurricane Tammy. Tammy is now a Category 1 hurricane with sustained winds of up to 75 miles per hour. At 11 a.m., the center of Tropical Storm Tammy was located at latitude 14.1 degrees north and longitude 58.6 degrees west. That places it about 203 miles southeast of Dominica. Tammy is now moving at 7 miles per hour towards the northwest. The maximum sustained winds, tropical storm force winds, extend outward up to 140 miles, and hurricane force winds extend outwards up to 25 miles, primarily to the east of the system. An increase in showers and thunderstorm activity is expected to continue as the day progresses. We expect to get up to 50 to 100 millimeters of rain, or 2 to 4 inches. These projections could be higher in areas of higher elevation, and we can expect that there will be possible flooding and landslides from this event. We expect a continued deterioration in sea conditions, with waves peaking near 4 meters or 12 feet tonight. Some key takeaways from this update should be that we can see the significant slowing in the forward trajectory of Tammy. This has given us the opportunity to see some intensification in the winds, and hence the reason for upgrading to a tropical storm hurricane watch at this point. Additionally, we expect Tammy to pass anywhere between 35 and 50 miles, to the northeast of Dominica at its closest point. Our projections of rainfall between 2 to 4 inches, we expect to keep the same, and we don't expect any significant changes in the amount of rainfall that we expect, but we have to understand that this is an accumulated amount of rainfall, and we should just keep track and always be aware, be vigilant. Residents in areas prone to flooding, landslides, and falling rocks should be on the alert and stay vigilant. Please refrain from crossing areas that are flooded. Additionally, for our marine folk, we expect that conditions on the west coast to continue to get worse as the storm moves further to the north of us, as the northerly swells can start impacting on the west coast. So please keep that in mind, and if you have not already removed your vessels, you should do so. Thank you, and keep updated with the weather forecast as we keep updating our website and all the other medias. Thank you.
Thank you, the Senior Met Officer, Mr. Itoma James, and I want to reiterate, if you have not removed your sea crafts from the water, you should do so now. At this time, anxiety levels may be high given our recent history of adverse weather impacts. Dr. Lenora Favre-Drago is the Chief Medical Officer acting in the Ministry of Health, Wellness, and Social Services. I'll now invite Dr. Drago to address you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Somehow when you think of the name Tammy, you don't think of anxiety. Tammy sounds like somebody you want to hang out with, a friend. But in this case, it's proving not to be so. And the Prime Minister did mention anxiety levels. Mr. Tit just mentioned anxiety levels. And anxiety levels are usually derived when you don't know what next to do, which means you've not prepared adequately or you've had bad experiences. So clear communication is obviously extremely important, and the Ministry of Health is here obviously to explain to you exactly what you need to do or what you should have done and been doing from the inception of the hurricane season. I'm going to speak right now especially to our frontline workers. You are extremely important right now. You're a vital commodity to the Ministry of Health right now. And your medical plans for your family or your family hurricane plans or disaster plans should be activated. It would be remiss of us to call on you to active duty when you've not secured your family. And then you have to say, I can't come in because I haven't bought milk for my baby, or I haven't done this, that, and the other. So please, we're being released from work. Get everything done that you need to do for your families. Ensure that your families are safe and secure so that if you are called into active duty, you may be able to respond in a timely manner and not have the preoccupation of the anxiety of not knowing what's going on with your family. We've been encouraging you, and I mean this is not just for hurricane season, but to ensure that your medical books, all your documents are secured in Ziploc bags. Important because we have not yet moved into the digitalization of our medical system, and that's coming pretty soon. So that's some good news for the Tammys to come. But we need you to have those books and your medicines, all of it, properly secured in airtight bags. If you're a diabetic patient, please ensure that your insulin is in a Ziploc bag wrapped in a small cloth or a washcloth, and then you have ice packs or ice in there because your insulin cannot get warm. It'll be of no use to you and you will discompensate. And your devices. So we're talking for those who are hearing impaired, please ensure that you have a backup battery supply. If you use your glucometers and your blood pressure machines, if they're rechargeable, charge them now before Domlec start Domlecing, and you have batteries to replace all of those things. So that's important. So your hearing aids need to have their batteries, your glucometers need to have batteries, your nebulizers for the asthmatics and those who suffer from COPD and those who suffer from bronchitis, because with the rain and the cold, chances are you will go into crisis and you may not be able to get to a health center immediately. So you need to have these things, and you have just a few hours to ensure that all of this is done. In going to the shelters, please let me urge you, if you have special needs as a diabetic, a hypersensitive, or anyone with a non-communicable chronic disease, please ensure that you have the medication that you need. Please ensure that you walk with the food supplies that you need, because the food will be provided for you, but you will get what everybody is getting. We don't have a nutritionist in these emergency situations to be able to give you special meals that make accommodations to your disease. So if you're a diabetic and you know you need your sweeteners, which is Splenda, we don't have Splenda. We have sugar, normal sugar. So walk with what you need. Walk with the foods that you need. If you're hypertensive and you have a special diet, then walk with that. There are things in your fridge that may go bad. So walk with those things that you can feed yourselves adequately and not discompensate during this emergency time. I will say again, because we've heard it all so many times, and I always end by saying, if you have failed to plan, then you plan to fail. So in these few hours we have before crunch time, please ensure that you have all that you need and do stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Drago. If you have failed to plan, then you have planned to fail. Individual preparations must be at advanced stages at this time. Mr. Fitzroy Pascal is the coordinator in the Office of Disaster Management in Dominica, and I'll now invite him to address us.
Good afternoon to the listening and viewing public. As we speak, Dominica remains under a tropical storm warning. A tropical storm warning means that tropical storm conditions are expected across the island within the next 24 hours. Additionally, the government of Dominica has seen it fit, saying that Tammy has been upgraded to a hurricane status. The government of Dominica has upgraded, in addition, placed Dominica under a hurricane watch. A hurricane watch means that hurricane conditions are possible across Dominica within the next 24 hours. And as the Honorable Prime Minister said, we are again seeing the effects of climate change and intensification of these weather systems, as indicated by the ODM several times. We do not want you to wait on the intensity, but we want you to focus on preparation. The focus should not be on category of the system, but on being prepared as best as you can. All preparedness should be rushed to completion and take decisions where necessary to ride out the system, whether at your home or at emergency shelters. You should also have your emergency kits packed and ready to take with you wherever you will be sheltering. The National Emergency Operations Center, the New York, it remains activated. The emergency services and first responders systems have been activated. Heavy equipment have been prepositioned to ensure limited downtime, continued access, and ease of mobility. During the passage of Tammy, the public should be on alert due to expected heavy rainfall, gusty winds up to tropical storm, and possible hurricane strength, flash flooding, and landslides. People living in low-lying coastal areas should be mindful of flooding from seawater intrusion. People living near rivers, ravines, and other waterways are reminded to be on alert during heavy rains and be ready to move to safety as required. Take all necessary measures to reduce flood impact. The ODM continues to discourage walking, swimming, and driving through flood waters. Farmers also should be mindful of damage to crops due to strong gusty winds. Mariners and fisher folks by now should have secured fishing vessels and other equipment and stay in port until further guidance is provided. Shelters have been opened to receive shelteries as of 7 p.m. Thursday night. Again, take necessary supplies with you. We continue to implore that the public should do all on their part to reduce impact to lives and livelihood. Again, continue to listen to the designated authorities for updates and further guidance during the next 48 hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzroy Pascal. You've heard from the Prime Minister that public officers will be allowed to go home at 1 p.m. today, and the private sector is encouraged to release your staff before 4 p.m. I'll now invite the Minister for Health, Wellness and Social Services, Honorable Kasani Laville, to give some closing remarks at this briefing.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon to all. I would like to take this opportunity to reiterate some of the highlights from this press briefing. As advised by the Met Office and ODM, we remain on a tropical storm warning. However, we have also been upgraded to a hurricane watch. We wish to advise the public once again that as of 1 p.m., public officers will be allowed to go home. Please take note, however, that there are many public officers who offer emergency services, and they will continue to provide services to the public. We are also urging the private sector to follow suit as much as possible, because we would like all Dominicans to be safe during this period. The shelters have been open, many of them from 7 o'clock last night. So we would like to urge many people, all Dominicans,
who are in vulnerable situations, areas that are low-lying and susceptible to flooding, areas where we may expect rockfalls or landslides, to move to the various shelters. The list has been published. It is available. Please check the shelters for your areas and be familiar with your shelter managers and the various assistant shelter managers. In many areas, transportation is being provided, and that is coordinated at a local level. So we would like to urge all to, as much as possible, if they are in susceptible areas, please, for your own safety, move over to the various shelters. As the Honorable Prime Minister has stated, it is not mandatory, notwithstanding for people's own personal safety. We would like to urge in a strong manner that if we are susceptible, please move and transition over to the shelters as soon as possible. We would like to reiterate the need for personal responsibility, personal safety and security of yourselves, and that also too of your loved ones. Let us try during this season to foster that tremendous Dominican spirit and compassion that is within us, and let us look out for one another. Let us during this time period be our brothers' keepers and look out for the vulnerable and those in need. This is a time for us to all review our personal emergency preparedness plans, and I say this to say that we're at a point right now where we should all secure loose items around our homes. It's an opportunity. We have but a small window to stock up on essential items, food, water, medication, and to also, again, like I said, check on the vulnerable. It is a time period where we must all hope for the best, but we must prepare for the worst. I would like to urge all that we act responsibly, but collectively. The government has been doing as much as possible to prepare for this storm, but we rely on the public also to participate. And it's really as a unit, as one in collaboration, that we can weather this storm. I would like to urge everyone to continue to pay attention to the various press briefings, the various advisories by the Met Office, by the ODM. Please stay tuned for various updates as they come along, so we can act accordingly and act responsibly. I would like to urge everyone also to, while we prepare, please remain calm. We need to manage our anxieties so we can act responsibly in this time period. I wish all of you, all Dominicans, the best. I pray for the best, and I trust that the good Lord, in his usual fashion, will continue to protect us and restore calm and peace in every sense in our blessed nation. And so we can all revert to our independence activities. Thank you. May God bless everyone.
Thank you, Honorable Laville. As you've heard from the Minister, please pray for the best, but we will prepare for the worst. Let us always remember the first responders, the nurses, the doctors, the orderlies at the Dominica China Friendship Hospital and other hospitals in Dominica, the Marigot Hospital, the police officers, the fire officers, the staff of the Office of Disaster Management and the Met Office, those who will not be able to go home at 1 p.m., as many of you are able to do now. We continue to encourage everyone not to panic. Fishermen, if you have not pulled in your vessels, do so now before it is too late. We are hoping that this storm moves away from us, but we will be prepared to deal with anything that may come our way. We thank you for we thank you for listening to this press briefing. We keep on encouraging you to listen to credible information from the Met Office through the media, from the Met Office, from the Office of Disaster Management, and be careful with the information you receive from certain sources. Once again, Dominicans, we are under hurricane watch at this time. Let us be prepared and let us be safe. I thank you and will bring you any more information that becomes available.